My sister tried to humiliate me in front of everyone at my own mother's party. But the moment the restaurant owner walked in and called me boss, her face turned pale. Stick with me while I share my story, and if it touches you, don't forget to support our channel by hitting that subscribe button, dropping a like, and sharing it with the people you care about. My name is Alyssa Reed. For as long as I can remember, I've been the quiet one in my family, the one everyone assumed would never amount to much. I wasn't loud like my older sister Madison. I didn't chase attention, I didn't brag about my life, and I didn't feel the need to compete with anyone. But in my family, especially in my mother's eyes, silence meant failure. Madison has always been the star. She talks big, dresses big, and makes sure everyone sees her shine, even when there's not much behind it. My mother ate it up. She would smile at Madison's flashy stories and then look at me with that familiar sigh, as if she wished I were more like my sister. Over the years, the comparisons became normal, almost expected. I got used to being the one they underestimated. What they didn't know was that I had been building something quietly. I worked long nights, studied on weekends, and took risks no one knew about. I never felt the need to announce anything until it was real. And eventually, it became very real. I built a consulting company that helped restaurants grow, stabilize, and survive. It wasn't glamorous, but it was successful. I didn't tell my family because I didn't want to hear Madison turn it into a competition or watch my mother twist it into something small. I kept my life to myself, and honestly, it was peaceful that way. But peace doesn't last long when family is involved. When my mother turned 60, Madison insisted on planning a big birthday dinner at a high-end restaurant in the city. I wasn't surprised when the invitation came with a handwritten note from her, telling me she hoped I would dress appropriately this time. It was her usual way of reminding me that she saw me as someone who didn't fit in. Still, I showed up. I wanted to celebrate my mother, and I didn't want to give Madison the satisfaction of thinking she had scared me off. The restaurant was beautiful, warm lights, polished tables, soft music, the kind of place people brag about visiting. I walked in quietly, hoping for a calm night, but Madison spotted me within seconds. She gave me one long look, the kind filled with judgment she didn't bother hiding. Then she smiled, the fake kind that always meant trouble. I could already feel the tension in the air, like she had been waiting for me just to start something. My mother barely greeted me before glancing at my outfit, clearly disappointed, as if she expected me to show up looking cheap or out of place. I took my seat anyway. I wasn't there to impress anyone. I was there to get through the night. But deep down, I could already sense Madison gearing up for another performance, something meant to embarrass me, something she thought would remind everyone of the difference between us. She had no idea how wrong she was. Growing up with Madison as my sister meant living in the shadow of someone who never missed a chance to remind me that she was better. It wasn't just normal sibling teasing. It became a pattern, something she enjoyed. She mocked my clothes, calling them cheap even when they were simply comfortable. She laughed at my quiet personality and told me no one took me seriously. When I chose jobs that didn't sound flashy enough for her, she used that to embarrass me in front of relatives. She would say things like, "Alyssa is still figuring out her life," as if I were lost and helpless. What made it worse was that my mother never stopped her. She didn't just ignore it, she often agreed with Madison. If Madison said I wasn't doing enough in life, my mother nodded. If Madison criticized my choices or joked about me not being successful, my mother would add her own comments about wishing I had more ambition. Their conversations felt like two people discussing a problem child, not a grown woman trying to find her path. After a while, I stopped defending myself. It was pointless. They didn't want to hear me. Holidays and family gatherings became stressful instead of warm. Madison always found an audience, and she made sure they saw me the way she wanted them to. A few cousins who used to be close to me slowly drifted toward her, repeating things she said about me. I became the quiet one not because it was my nature, but because talking around them only led to more judgment. I learned to keep my distance, to choose peace over trying to change people. Eventually, I moved away. I found a small apartment in a different city and built a life where I didn't have to deal with constant comparisons. With no one pushing me down, I finally had room to grow. I worked hard, focused on learning, and took opportunities one never would have taken if I were still near them. Success didn't come overnight, but step by step, I created something strong. My consulting company grew quietly, without noise or family drama. I hired people I trusted, made smart decisions, and kept everything low profile. I didn't tell my family what I was doing. They had never shown interest in understanding my life, so there was no reason to start explaining now. For years, I kept my distance, visiting them only when necessary and never staying long. It made things calmer. I didn't have to face Madison's comments or my mother's sighs. I didn't have to hear about how great Madison was or how disappointing I was. I finally felt free from that weight. Then the birthday invitation came. The envelope was fancy, with my mother's name embossed on the front. Inside was the official invite to her 60th birthday dinner, along with a handwritten note from Madison. Just one sentence, but sharp enough to remind me exactly who she was. "Don't embarrass yourself this time." I stared at those words for a long moment. It was the same tone she had used my whole life, belittling, smug, certain she could still control the story. She didn't know how much had changed. She didn't know who I had become. And she had no idea her little message would be the beginning of the moment everything shifted. The restaurant was warm and bright when I walked in, the kind of place where everything felt polished and expensive. I wore a simple but elegant dress, nothing loud, nothing meant to impress anyone. It was just me, comfortable and confident in my own quiet way. I hoped the night would go smoothly, but the moment Madison's eyes landed on me, I knew she had been waiting for this. She didn't even try to hide her smirk. Before I could take 2 steps, she let out a dramatic sigh and said loud enough for nearby guests to hear, "Wow, Alyssa, that's what you chose to wear tonight?" The tone in her voice wasn't surprised, it was mocking. A few family friends turned their heads, already sensing she was about to put on one of her usual performances. I didn't react. I had learned long ago that giving her attention only encouraged her. But she wasn't finished. As I approached the table, she added, "I guess not everyone can afford something nice for a place like this." Her voice carried easily over the soft music. People at the next table tried to look away, but still listened. Our mother didn't defend me. She simply looked me over from head to toe with that familiar, disappointed expression, the one she used whenever she felt I'd failed her. She didn't say a word, but her silence was louder than anything Madison said. It told the room exactly whose side she was on. Madison kept going, acting as if she were giving friendly advice. "You know, Alyssa, maybe if you chose a more serious career, you could treat yourself once in a while. There's still time to get your life together." She smiled sweetly, pretending she was being supportive, but everyone could hear the insult underneath. Guests whispered behind their napkins. A couple of my mother's friends exchanged uncomfortable glances, but no one spoke up. This was normal for them. Madison had done this for years, and no one ever challenged her. I took my seat quietly, choosing to focus on the menu instead of her words. But even then, I could feel Madison's eyes on me, waiting for some reaction she could use against me. When I didn't give her anything, she got restless. She thrived on attention, and my calmness irritated her. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed her lean toward the restaurant manager, an older man in a suit who seemed confused but polite. Madison whispered something to him, glancing at me in between sentences. Her smile was sharp, the kind she only wore when she had planned something mean. The manager looked uncomfortable, almost uncertain if he should be involved in whatever she was trying to arrange. I didn't know exactly what she was saying, but I could guess. Madison always loved dramatic moments, and she wanted everyone at that party to see me as someone small, someone who didn't belong in a place like this. She wasn't satisfied with a few comments. She wanted something bigger, something that would embarrass me in front of the whole room. She sat back in her chair with a satisfied look, like she was waiting for the right moment to strike. I watched her for a second, not saying anything, not letting her see even a hint of fear. I knew she wanted a reaction. Instead, I stayed still, letting her think she had everything under control. What she didn't know was that her plan was about to fall apart in a way she never expected. Dinner had barely begun when Madison decided it was time to take things further. She stood up suddenly, holding her glass like she was about to give some heartfelt speech. The room quieted a little, and people turned toward her, expecting something normal. But I knew better. Madison never missed a chance to turn attention into a weapon. She smiled brightly and said, "I just want to take a moment to appreciate my little sister Alyssa." The way she emphasized little made a few relatives shift in their seats. Madison continued, acting sweet and generous. "She may not have the fanciest job or the most exciting life, but she tries. And honestly, that's what matters." The words hit harder than shouting would have. They were soft on the surface, but sharp underneath. A few guests let out small, uncomfortable laughs, not sure if they were supposed to. Madison wasn't finished. "We're proud of you for showing up tonight," she added. "I know places like this can feel overwhelming when you're not used to them." Some people lowered their eyes. Others stared at me with pity, exactly what Madison wanted. I sat still, not reacting, giving her nothing to feed on. She noticed, which only made her push harder. Madison raised her glass higher. "And Alyssa," she said with fake warmth, "don't worry about anything tonight. We know this dinner is a bit much. Just relax. If it gets too expensive for you, we all understand." That line made several guests look at each other. Some pressed their lips together to keep from reacting. Others avoided my gaze completely. Madison looked proud of herself, like she had just delivered a performance she'd rehearsed. Then the manager walked over. He looked uneasy, shifting his weight like he wasn't sure he should be doing what he was about to do. He cleared his throat and addressed us politely. "Excuse me, I was told to bring the bill directly to Ms. Alyssa when the time comes. Is that correct?" A silence fell over the table. A few forks clinked against plates. Madison's smile grew wider, and she nodded subtly, pretending she had no idea what he was talking about. "Oh, did I say that?" she asked lightly. "I just thought it would make things easier. Alyssa likes to feel independent." She said it with such confidence that some people actually believed she was helping me. I looked at the manager. He looked back at me, clearly uncomfortable, waiting for some kind of answer. But I didn't say anything. I didn't deny it. I didn't correct Madison. I didn't defend myself. I simply let the moment sit. Madison watched me, waiting for panic or embarrassment, something she could enjoy. But all she saw was calm. That confused her. She shifted in her seat, adjusting her hair, suddenly unsure if I understood what was happening. She thought she had cornered me. She thought I would crumble in front of everyone the way I had when we were younger. But I stayed still, letting her think this was her big victory. Because I already knew something she didn't. The night wasn't going to end the way she planned. Not even close. Madison wasn't satisfied with her little speech. She never stopped when she felt she had an audience, and tonight she had a full room watching. After the manager walked away, she leaned back in her chair like she had already won. But she wanted more. She always wanted more. A few minutes later, when one of the servers approached to refill drinks, Madison raised her voice on purpose. "Oh, and make sure my sister pays up front," she said loudly, tapping the table with her nails. "You know how some people get nervous with big bills. I don't want her running out before the check arrives." The server froze, eyes widening slightly. People at nearby tables turned to look. Some laughed quietly, not because it was funny, but because they didn't know what else to do. A couple of family members chuckled too, more out of habit than humor. They were so used to Madison's behavior that they didn't even realize how cruel she sounded anymore. The words hit me, of course they did. Even after everything I had learned to ignore, it still stung to hear her speak, as if I were some kind of burden or joke. But I didn't react. I kept my hands still, my expression calm. I didn't want to give her even a flicker of satisfaction. The server looked at me, unsure if he should follow Madison's request. I gave him a small, polite nod to show I wasn't upset with him. He hesitated, then stepped away with an uncomfortable glance. The staff around him looked equally uneasy, whispering to each other as they passed by. No one wanted to be part of whatever Madison was creating. The atmosphere shifted. Conversations at our table slowed. Some people stared at their plates, pretending they didn't hear anything. Others watched Madison with uncertainty, like they were finally realizing she might have gone too far. But no one said a word. No one ever did. I felt the weight of the moment pressing on me. For a second, I wondered if staying silent was the right choice. Maybe I should say something. Maybe I should defend myself, just once. But every time I opened my mouth in the past, it only gave Madison more ammunition. I didn't want to turn the night into a public fight. So I pushed my chair back gently. I stood up, planning to step outside for air. Not to run away, just to breathe, to give myself a moment away from the noise and the cruelty. I didn't owe Madison a reaction. I didn't owe anyone an explanation. I told myself I would walk out for a few minutes, calm down, come back, and finish the night quietly. No drama. No scene. But right as I took my first step, the front doors opened. And in walked the restaurant owner. His presence changed the room instantly. Staff straightened up. Managers hurried toward him. He looked around the space like someone checking in on a valuable place he cared about. Then his eyes landed on me. He smiled immediately, wide, warm, like he had just found someone he was actually happy to see. "Alyssa, you're here tonight." Every head at the table turned. Madison froze. My mother blinked in confusion. The owner stepped closer before anyone could speak. "It's great to see you," he said. "You didn't tell me you were coming, boss." Daniel Carter walked toward me with the same energy someone uses when greeting an old friend. He didn't glance at Madison. He didn't acknowledge my mother. He came straight to me, smiling like he truly meant it. "Alyssa, good to see you. I didn't know you were here tonight, boss." The word boss echoed loud enough for the entire table to hear. Conversations around us stopped. Forks paused midair. Even the music in the background suddenly felt quieter. Madison's face went blank. Confusion spread across her features like she couldn't understand what she had just heard. My mother's smile faded instantly. She turned toward me, her expression tight, trying to figure out how someone like me could receive a greeting like that in a place like this. I stayed still, not rushing to explain anything. Daniel seemed genuinely happy to see me, and I appreciated that warmth more than I expected. He shook my hand with a firm, friendly grip, then looked around the table as if trying to understand why the mood was so strange. Madison tried to recover first. She stood halfway up, smiling awkwardly. "Hi, I'm." Daniel walked right past her. He didn't even notice her hand. Instead, he turned back to me and said, "You should have told me you were coming tonight. I would have arranged a private room for you." Gasps went around the table. Someone actually dropped a spoon. Madison slowly sat back down, her face turning stiff. My mother spoke next, her voice shaky. You two know each other?" Daniel nodded, surprised she even asked. "Of course. Alyssa's company manages all 12 restaurants in our chain." He said it casually, like it was common knowledge, something everyone at the table should have known. Madison's eyes widened. "Her company?" she repeated, as if the words didn't make sense. Daniel continued, still smiling. "A few years ago, my business was struggling. I was close to shutting everything down. Alyssa stepped in, reorganized everything, trained our team, and changed our structure. Honestly, we wouldn't be here without her." The staff standing around us stared like they were hearing a story about a superhero. Some nodded, finally understanding why Daniel had called me boss. A few even smiled, respectful and relieved, because suddenly the strange requests Madison made earlier made sense. They could see now who actually held authority. Madison's confidence cracked right in front of me. She looked around the room like she was hoping someone would tell her this was a joke. My mother lowered her eyes, embarrassed, realizing the person she spent years dismissing was someone she should have been proud of. I didn't gloat. I didn't smirk or throw any words back at them. I simply gave Daniel a calm smile and said, "I'm just here for my mom's birthday." I didn't want to make it a big deal. Daniel shook his head gently. "You never make it a big deal. That's exactly why people respect you." The table fell into silence. For the first time in years, Madison wasn't the center of attention. She wasn't the one people admired. She wasn't even in control of the moment. The truth had taken that from her in one sentence. And I didn't have to say a single word. Madison froze for a moment, her face pale, as if someone had drained all the confidence from her body. The proud, loud sister everyone knew was gone in an instant. Then, like she had rehearsed it 100 times, she tried to recover. "Oh, Alyssa, I always knew you could do it," she said, her voice suddenly soft and over-friendly. "I mean, I've always believed in you, even if no one else did. It's just, I was joking before, you know? All those comments. Just teasing." She reached out, trying to hug me. I stepped back, not because I wanted to hurt her feelings, but because I wasn't going to let her act like years of cruelty had never happened. Her hug was meant to erase the past, to make everyone think it was just a funny story. But I wasn't playing along. Madison glanced around, clearly panicked. The guests were quiet now, many of them avoiding eye contact. The whispers that had been floating around earlier had stopped, replaced by an awkward stillness. No one was laughing this time. The energy in the room had shifted completely. My mother tried to intervene, but it didn't help. She leaned forward, her voice trembling slightly as she addressed me. "Alyssa, we didn't mean to make things so hard for you. We just wanted you to try harder in life, that's all." I looked at her, noting the tension in her words. Her explanation wasn't really an apology, it was justification. They hadn't seen me as capable for years, and now they were trying to make themselves feel better by framing it as concern. But the truth was clear. They had underestimated me for too long. Madison tried again, this time laughing nervously. "I mean, everyone knows you've always had potential. You just didn't really show it until now. Right?" "Huh." Her eyes darted to the staff, then to Daniel, as if she hoped someone would validate her story. No one did. The staff glanced at each other, subtly acknowledging who really held authority. Guests who had been forced to watch Madison humiliate me earlier now kept their heads down, avoiding eye contact. It was like they couldn't erase what they had seen, and they knew it wasn't a joke. Madison's collapse was gradual, her confident mask slipping more with every passing second. She was scrambling, desperately trying to rewrite the story, but the room had already seen the truth. My mother's attempts at explanation sounded hollow, and the more Madison tried to charm or excuse herself, the more obvious her panic became. I stayed calm the entire time. I didn't argue, I didn't justify myself, and I didn't raise my voice. I let Madison and my mother stumble through their own words while the room held the reality of the situation. The power dynamic had shifted, and for the first time, I felt the weight of years of judgment lift. Madison's face fell completely now. The bravado was gone. The smiles were forced. And I realized something important. I didn't need anyone to declare my worth. It had been clear to everyone else in the room, and that was enough. After Madison's frantic attempts to cover herself, Daniel leaned in and quietly spoke to me. "Alyssa, the dinner is already taken care of. Consider it a small thank you for everything you've done." His words were calm but carried weight, and I felt a small sense of satisfaction. The thought that Madison's plan to embarrass me had already failed made me steady my posture. I smiled politely at him and nodded. "Thank you, Daniel. That's very kind," I said softly. Then I straightened and addressed the table, my voice calm but clear enough for everyone to hear. "I want to take a moment to clarify something," I began, making sure my words reached all the guests. "Some things my sister said tonight were meant to embarrass me, but I think it's important everyone understands the truth." I paused for a breath, letting the room settle and attention shift fully to me. Success doesn't always look flashy. It doesn't have to be loud or showy. Just because someone lives quietly or doesn't announce every achievement doesn't mean they aren't capable or accomplished. A few heads nodded. Guests who had been awkwardly watching Madison's earlier attempts now looked at me with respect. Some whispered quietly to each other, clearly impressed. I kept my tone gentle and composed, not arrogant, just firm. The difference between what Madison had tried to make everyone believe and the reality was now undeniable. Madison sat frozen, her mouth slightly open, clearly not expecting me to take control so calmly. Her usual smirk was gone, replaced by a flush of jealousy that I could almost feel radiating from her. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. She had tried to dictate the story for the night, and suddenly it had slipped from her grasp entirely. My mother shifted in her seat, looking uncomfortable. She had spent decades treating Madison as the star of the family and dismissing me, and now the truth was clear for everyone to see. I didn't need to call her out directly. The facts spoke for themselves. The room had already seen who had actually made an impact, who had quietly built something meaningful, and who had been pretending all along. I continued briefly, just enough to bring closure to the moment. "I'm here tonight to celebrate my mom, and I hope everyone enjoys the evening. I appreciate the kind words from those who understand hard work often happens behind the scenes." Several guests complimented me quietly, some nodding or giving small smiles. Their respect was evident. It was not the kind of attention Madison craved, the loud applause she always sought, but it felt stronger because it was genuine. Madison burned with jealousy. Every glance she gave me was sharp, frustrated, and empty. She realized she no longer controlled the narrative. My mother, meanwhile, avoided my eyes, embarrassed at how obvious her favoritism had been. For the first time in years, I felt fully in control. Not by boasting or confronting aggressively, but by calmly letting the truth shine. The evening had shifted, subtly but undeniably. I wasn't just surviving Madison's cruelty anymore. I was quietly winning the night. I stepped outside for a moment, needing fresh air and space away from the tension inside. The cool night hit my face, and I took a deep breath, letting myself think clearly for the first time in hours. The noise and the whispers from the restaurant faded behind me, leaving only the quiet and my thoughts. A few seconds later, Madison appeared at the doorway. Her usual confident posture was gone. She looked desperate, her voice trembling as she called out, "Alyssa, please don't ruin my reputation tonight. Just come back inside." I turned to face her, keeping my expression calm. I had stayed silent long enough. It was time to say what needed to be said. "Madison," I began, my voice steady, "do you understand why this isn't just about tonight? It's about every single year you've tried to make me feel small. Every comment, every joke at my expense, every time you turned others against me, it destroyed our relationship." She blinked, like she wasn't expecting me to speak so directly. I didn't mean it like that," she stammered. I didn't realize." "No," I interrupted softly but firmly. "You did realize. That's why it hurt so much. You knew exactly what you were doing. And the truth is, it's not about me anymore. It's about understanding that you broke something between us." Her eyes filled with tears. For the first time, I saw genuine remorse, not the fake smiles or forced concern she usually showed. She sank onto the bench outside the restaurant, burying her face in her hands. I pushed you away for nothing," she whispered, her voice shaking. "All for my ego. I didn't even think about you. I took a step closer but didn't sit. It's too late to undo the past, Madison. But it's not too late for the future. That starts with honesty and understanding, not pretending everything is fine." Our mother came outside, hesitating at first. Her expression was a mix of worry and embarrassment. "Alyssa, I'm sorry," she said quickly. "I didn't realize how much I hurt you. We thought we were helping you, pushing you to do more." Her voice sounded sincere, but there was still that small part of her holding back, the part that needed to justify her past choices. I looked at her, then back at Madison. "I appreciate the apology," I said, "but I can't keep carrying the weight of your guilt. I won't let it define me anymore. I've grown beyond it." Madison nodded through her tears. "I understand. I want to fix this somehow." I shook my head gently. "We'll see. But the first step is for me to stop letting years of your behavior control how I feel about myself." For the first time, I felt a release I hadn't known I needed. The anger, the hurt, and the years of being underestimated finally felt lighter. I wasn't closing the door completely, but I was no longer trapped by their actions. That night, I realized I could forgive without forgetting, and move forward without carrying the burden of their mistakes. And for me, that was the true breakthrough. After the confrontation outside, I returned to the party one last time, not to engage, but to quietly finish the evening with dignity. I moved through the room calmly, offering polite smiles to a few guests, acknowledging their compliments without making a scene. There was no need for loud declarations or dramatic gestures. The power of the night had already shifted, and everyone could see it without me pointing it out. Madison sat at the table, still shaken. Her attempts to regain control were half-hearted, and it was clear she now understood the reality she had ignored for so long. Over the next few weeks, she reached out repeatedly, texts, calls, and even a few visits, trying to mend what she had damaged. But I didn't rush. I listened when she apologized, but I set clear boundaries. I wouldn't let her past behavior dictate my life again. The relationship would take time to rebuild, if at all, and on my terms. My mother was quieter than usual. I noticed her avoiding moments of judgment or comparison. She was embarrassed, but there was a subtle shift in how she treated me after that night. She realized that dismissing me for years had consequences, and I could see the effort she made to adjust her tone when we spoke. I didn't dwell on her mistakes. I had bigger priorities now. With the party behind me, I returned fully to my own life. My consulting company continued to grow, expanding quietly but successfully. I focused on projects that mattered, mentoring my team, and building businesses with integrity. I no longer felt the need to prove myself to my family. The quiet, steady success I had built was my own form of victory, and it felt far stronger than any argument or confrontation could ever have been. I thought about the moment Daniel had called me boss during the party. That single word had shifted everything. It wasn't just recognition of my achievements. It was a public acknowledgement that I had become the person my family had doubted. It was the turning point that finally freed me from years of humiliation and self-doubt. In that moment, I realized that revenge didn't have to be loud or vengeful. It could be as simple as rising to the life I had always been capable of. I didn't need Madison to admire me, nor did I need my mother to constantly approve. I had proven to myself that I could succeed on my own terms. That quiet satisfaction, the kind that comes from knowing your worth and living it, became my real reward. Life continued, but I carried a new sense of freedom. I could attend family gatherings without fear, knowing I had earned my place in the world. I could walk into any room with confidence, no longer shrinking to fit someone else's expectations. My boundaries were firm, my achievements undeniable, and my peace unshakable. In the end, I realized the most powerful revenge isn't confrontation or humiliation. It's living well, quietly but unapologetically, as the person they said I could never be. And for me, that was more than enough.